Hey guys, this is just day five. We are doing just day five today because it's kind of a long one. So we are going to see how this will take, but hopefully not a long time. So, okay, there. So your bell work kind of like do these questions. What is one way we see gender equality in the United States? What is one way we see gender inequality or equality in the United States? What is one way we see gender inequality in the United States? And so this is going to be over gender equality and inequality. And so we'll be looking at the inequality of gender in the world. So men versus women. And so your totally useless bit of information is Groundhog Day is the world's weirdest holiday. It's random because it's just like, hey, groundhog, tell us the weather. And it's like, oh, okay. So gender inequality. So this is mostly from the world's perspective. So women do 66% of the world's work and only own 1% of the world's property. 14 million girls were child brides last year. Um, Childbirth is the leading cause of death of girls between ages 15 and 19. Every year, 60 million girls are assaulted on their way to school. 70 million girls aged 6 to 12 do not attend school. And those are just kind of worldwide statistics that are really important for us to know. They It just shows you that in America we have this great land of opportunity, and yet in the world we see such inequality between men and women. So gender inequality measures just how developed a country is. So gender equity is seeing um, that our resources, programs, and just decision making is both made from males and females, and it addresses any imbalances in the benefits. So, like, if there's something like where men get more than women, how is it that the society changes that inequality? That's gender equity. And so, empowerment. So, can women achieve economic and political power? So for that, you look at the percentage of women in legislature or executive, and then the number or the percentage of women who finished high school. So just regular plain Jane high school, and also literacy rate. So how many people, like, what's the percentage of people who can read and write? And so this is kind of hard, the literacy rate, because every country's literacy rate is very different. So some countries have a high literacy rate, but compared to ours, it's lower. So they would be considered illiterate in our country, but different in another country. So this is empowerment is kind of looking, it's like how can women achieve economically and politically. And so here's a Verizon commercial. If you have this, you can look up the video. Literacy rate. So the adult literacy rate has risen to 84% of women um, who are adults since 1990 to 2012, and then over 60% of the world's, but women account for 60% of the world's illiteracy rate. So in 2012, 99% of women in the developed countries of the world could read, 75% in the developing, 51% in the least developed countries. Education, all developing countries or regions in the world have almost achieved gender parity in primary school. So that means equal education for both men and women, or boys and girls the in the what's call it in elementary school, and so they have that access to education. But the gender disparity at the secondary school and tertiary school levels in many countries is huge. So in sub-Saharan Africa, 64%, or like to every 100 boys, there's 64 girls who graduate from secondary, so high school. And so that's a bigger disparity than most everywhere else in the world. In politics, the percentage of women in parliament, and this is the UK, has nearly doubled in the last 20 years. But this only translates into 22% of women in parliament today. This is women in Congress from 1917. Or actually, no, that's 1971. That's dyslexia by me. From 1971, where there was 15 women, to 2014, where there was 100 in Congress. So it's making up a bigger portion. So in the 114th, so again, this is 2014, females only make up roughly 20% in the House and 20% in the Senate. And that has increased over time. And so the discussion questions is 50% of Americans are women, but 20% are legislators. Why aren't women able to achieve political equity in the United States? So think about that. That's a discussion question. Why do you think? And it's okay to disagree with this question. It's like, hey, I don't think that there is any inequality. That it's just not like less and less. Like there's just not enough women wanting to be in it because it's just too much work. Because sometimes that's actually the case. Then the labor force. What percentage of the working citizens are women? This is not always accurate because in the world, because some countries don't think that women's work actually counts, which is like that's just like a double negative. And so there's equity in the World Bank. The video is in the notes, so you can watch that. Reproductive health. This is kind of a really important thing in in the world. And why do women die so much more than men? Because the maternal mortality rate. So this is a number of women who die per 1,000 births. And then adolescent fertility rate, so the number of births per 1,000 women between 15 and 19. We want both of these numbers to be low, very low, because that means women, like mothers, are surviving birth, and also women who are between the ages of 15 and 19 aren't getting pregnant. So 45% fewer maternity deaths since 1919, but still 800 women still die every day from preventable pregnancy rates related causes, and 99% of these deaths occur in the developing world. Female genitalia mutilation. So this happens in the world where women are essentially tortured, and this is a growing or this was a growing issue, and this has impacted a whole bunch of women's rights to kind of be like, hey, we don't need to hurt anyone, especially in that area. So there's that. And then there is growing stuff. So the UN Women, which is a non-governmental organization or an NGO, they're working for gender equality and the empowerment of women internationally. And so for the most part, on the surface level, this is nice, but there are some countries that are not the greatest people on this. And so it's just like, and also it just makes no sense why some countries are on it. I don't have the list in front of me, but it's like there's some that you just like kind of like raise your eyebrows at, like, really? And so this is mapping paid maternity leave. So how many weeks do other nations provide compared to the United States? The US requires or gives you none. The government gives you none compared to if you look at all the stuff. So in Canada, you get 50 weeks paid. Norway is 44, Italy 22, UK 20, and Denmark 18. Same with Venezuela, France, Spain, Netherlands, Germany, Like you can see just all of these countries give paid maternity leave, but the US doesn't give any from the government point of view. And so um, the the graph shows countries with paid maternity leave. So there's the dark blue, that's 26 weeks or more. Light blue is 14 to 25, less than 14, and then 0. So if you look at all of us of the nose, we're the only kind of developed country that doesn't give this, and we ask why. And so a lot of times the government doesn't give it, but companies do, but they're not required to. And so some countries give this as a way of, it's like, okay, like we're doing this, that, and the other. And the United States kind of gives that to corporations to give that to their workers, not the government forcing. And so there is a give and take to that. So because there's um, maternity leave. So in Sweden, it's 460 days, or if you equal that out, I'm doing the math right now. It's over a year, obviously, but 480 divided by 7, that's 68 weeks. So why does this happen? And so Sweden does this, and America does nothing. And so there is some problem. So there's discussion questions. So why don't we have maternity leave in the U.S.? Patriarchy isn't an acceptable answer because that's a dumb answer that doesn't exist. And then why is it important that we have maternity leave? So think about that, answer that. And then there's an infographic that's in the notes that you can look, like if you look at the tab at the bottom, the notes, you can see the website for violence against women, the Egypt PSA, and then the dangers of language. So language reflects and molds our culture, and this can be bad for everyone. So there is the word feminist. That is a politically charged word, and we can see that today. And so that's someone who advocates for equal political, economic, cultural, and social rights between men and women. And so some people have changed the language of that. So there's some people who are super extreme that's like women should be better than men are worthless. And then there's some people who keep to this, um, which I feel like everyone should be this definition of a feminist or an egalitarianism. So there's that. And then there's this video, like a girl campaign, which is like there's the insult that you throw ball like a girl, and then this girl is like, oh, I can do anything a guy can, and she's playing over pitch baseball, and so it's just kind of like, okay, I can do this. And then do this on your thing. It's like, do you like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but it's like, do you consider yourself a feminist before this lesson? Do you consider yourself a feminist now? And then if not, why don't you want equality between the genders? I'll answer that to the best of your ability. Again, this is optional. And then there's Dear Daddy. This is kind of like, oh, this is what I can grow up to be. And then the mask you make or that you live in, kind of all that. So the summary is describe the impact of gender equality on the developing country. Use at least 3 vocab words from this chapter. So we're from this day. So class discussion, and then that's it for today. It's a short lesson. I wanted to give you an easy break or easy week. So next week we'll do a little more, and I'll add some stuff. Okay. Hope y'all have a good day. Miss y'all. Okay.